Hello, I'm Dr. Shantae, and welcome to the Hole in Your Heart podcast, where I help you fill the holes in your life by helping you find the hole in your heart. See what I did there? This is season 1 of the Hole in Your Heart podcast. Season 1 was filmed last year, and I was set to launch this podcast March 2024. But then life spectacularly happened. And so I had to put the podcast on the shelf and wait until this year until life was done lifing. What you're about to see is in a totally different studio. It has a totally different vibe, but the content is still important, and that's what I want you to focus on. So there are 6 episodes this season. Each episode is going to start with this exact video, so in the future feel free to skip it. But I can't wait for you guys to get into this content. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the other side. Hello, I'm Dr. Shantae, and welcome to Hole in Your Heart podcast. Hole in Your Heart podcast is the podcast that uses a trauma-informed care approach to helping you find happiness and wholeness in your life and in your relationships. So welcome to the Afro series. I'm kidding. But I took the braids out and now I have this Afro do it to it, and we're going to make it do what it do today. But actually, you are entering the viral series. And what I mean by that is last year, 2023, I had not 1, not 2, but 3 videos that went viral. And the way that I'm defining that is that there were over 1 million views for each of these videos. And so what that tells me is that these topics are really resonating with you guys. And so I'm going to take each one of those and unpack them over the next few episodes. And so the one that I want to start with is one that went viral at the end of the year, and it was all about grief. Take a look. Can we talk about grief for a minute? And I'm not talking about death in the family grief. I'm talking about I thought my life would be different at this stage of the game, grief. I thought this relationship would last forever, grief. I thought my friends would be here for me in meaningful ways, grief. I thought my health would be better at this point, grief. I thought my finances would be in a different place, grief. I'm talking about these significant life disappointments. And a lot of times when we feel those, sometimes we try to rush past the sadness that we feel and try to give ourselves the old pep talk. And I realized that in trying to rush past the sadness and rush past those feelings, that in stifling my grief, I was also stifling my growth, because through grief, I found something called self-compassion. And self-compassion is when you turn inwardly and give yourself the kind of love, support, care, comfort, patience that you would give a friend who was going through a tough time. And in allowing myself to grieve and also allowing myself to experience compassion and time and support, I actually found myself better able to move forward and find peace and resolution rather than suppressing it and acting like it didn't exist or that it didn't bother me. So it's okay to allow yourself to grieve so that you can grow. So let me be clear. I'm not a grief expert by any stretch of the imagination. And in that video, I'm making a distinction between the loss of a loved one grief or the loss of someone or something that we care about grief, and looking specifically at these significant life disappointments. And I feel like the reason why that resonated so loudly is because it seems like unless there's the loss of a loved one, unless there's the loss of a parent, then it doesn't seem like you have the quote unquote the right to feel that heaviness, to feel that cloak of disappointment, and that you're supposed to suck it up and soldier on. And even if there are bright sides, even if there are silver linings, even if you'll be better off in the long run, pain is pain and hurt is hurt. And societally, we have not reached a place where we have enough collective empathy to allow people to hurt when they are disappointed about some of the things in their life that have happened or that haven't happened, or where they're in places in their life and they're like, man, I thought I just would be further along by now. So as always, I have my trusty notebook. This pen and pad situation, it helps me facilitate my thoughts more clearly, even though we do have the tools like the laptops and the iPads and the phones and all of that. there's something about writing it down that not only is very therapeutic for me, but also provides tremendous clarity. And if I have clarity, then that means I can give you clarity. So let's talk about it. When I'm talking about grief facilitating growth, I want to talk about something called rehearsing your suffering. And this is when you are on a constant loop of all the things that are wrong. I'm getting too old. I'm still single. I haven't had a child yet, and then all of the emotions and the sadness that is attached to that. When you allow yourself to grieve, it facilitates growth, because if you get stuck in that loop of rehearsal, okay, your thoughts are very powerful. Your thoughts create beliefs, and then your beliefs manifest in behavior. And I tell people all the time, when you're thinking about your story, it's not just the what happened. What's really most important is the so what. It's the analysis of that story. It's the interpretation of that story. How are you making that narrative significant for your life? And too often when something happens, they take the story and they say, this means I'm unworthy. This means I'm not lovable. This means I'm not enough. This means I'm not lucky. This means I'm going to be just like my mom, or this means I'm going to be, just like my dad. This means that I'm doomed. And when you are making it mean that, you are stuck in a cycle of grief, and you're stuck in a loop of suffering and rehearsing suffering that subsequently manifests in behavior. You are creating a construct in real life that is consistent with that rehearsal thought pattern. And so think about it. If you are constantly walking around saying, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, God hates me, or whatever it is that you are telling yourself about, and how you're interpreting those events, what types of decisions do you think you're going to be making about your life? What types of partners do you think you're going to be choosing? What types of risk are you going to be taking or not taking? Because if you believe that you are less than, if you believe in lack and scarcity and all the things that are keeping you locked in this pattern of suffering, I have seen people make some life-altering decisions from that place, because scarcity arrests your mind, it arrests your thoughts, and it keeps you in this perpetual loop of what I don't have and what's not enough, and I'm going to suffer. Okay, so grief, allowing yourself to feel those feelings, okay, and extend compassion to yourself, because that's the key part of the video. Allowing yourself to extend compassion to yourself means that you can detach from the story, and you can say, you know what, despite these things that have happened, or despite these things that have not happened, you are still worthy. You are still beautiful, you are still enough, and you are not less than, and your life is not less than, and you can have a life after a tough diagnosis, and you may not like these cards, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a winning hand, or winning choices, or winning strategies, or options on the table that you can still exercise, okay? So allowing yourself to grieve is partly being able to get out of that loop of rehearsing the suffering, so that you're not just walking around with it all the time. The next point that I want to make is delay is not denial. And here's what I mean by that. There is some wisdom in being able to trust the timing of your life, because I have had those experiences, and I'm sure some of you have had those experiences, where if you had got what you wanted when you wanted it, you would have messed it up. You were not ready. Either you were not ready financially, you were not ready emotionally, you were not ready psychologically, you were not ready because you hadn't done enough of the inner work. And some of you have had that experience where you did get it, and then you blew it up because you were not in a place where you were able to steward that blessing or steward that opportunity in a way that would have facilitated lasting success. So there is some wisdom in trusting the timing of your life. But in thinking about those significant life disappointments, I want to give you an opportunity to reframe that thinking, right? So instead of, well, I don't have this and I don't have that, it's like, okay, well, because you don't, what are you able to do differently? What are you able to do now? And these might be things like, well, because I don't have this marriage, or because I don't have a child right now, or because of whatever, maybe I'm able to save more money. Maybe I'm able to pay off debt. Maybe I'm able to relocate. Maybe I'm eligible for benefits, health benefits that I might not have been eligible for before. Maybe I have access to community now that I didn't have access to before. And so it's not just about, well, look for the silver lining. It's about reframing your circumstances, not from a place of lack and scarcity and doom, but from a place of abundance and joy and opportunity, okay? Because there are opportunities despite the things that have happened or not happened in your life. Again, it goes back to that point of not just what happened, but how have you analyzed that story? How have you interpreted that story? What have you made those things mean about your life, your circumstances, and your possibilities for the future? And so grief is not a bad thing. We have gotten into a place in society where we have really kind of like demonized emotions, and we try to keep a stiff upper lip, and we try to suck it up and soldier on, and it's like nobody's handing out badges. I'm telling you right now, there is not a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. Okay, there's not a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. And that's just the psychological and the mental piece. There's a ton of work about what rehearsing that suffering and staying locked in that grief loop does psychologically to your stress response and to your stress system, and how you are consistently in a place of fight or flight or survival. And the decisions that you're making from a place of survival and fight and fear and disappointment, that's a very different quality of life than when you're making decisions from a place of thriving, of opportunity, of abundance, okay? So don't demonize your emotions. Don't keep them all locked up here, but give yourself some grace. Give yourself some compassion. Allow those things to come out, and be careful not to interpret the story in such a way that it dooms you to a life that is less than one that brings you joy and abundance. So I'm going to stop it there. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe. I created this content specifically with a YouTube audience in mind, and so I would love to interact with you. And the highest compliment that you can pay me is that if you think that this is valuable in some way, please share it with someone that you think can benefit, because that is the whole point. And I hope you find the hole in your heart. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, so feel free to hop into the comments, give me your 2 cents. I read and respond to every single post. I can't wait to engage with you. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and always feel free to share.